Women are priceless. Truth matters more than comfort. What happens when masculine culture goes toxic or when masculine culture goes too far? What happens when feminine culture goes toxic? What happens when you prioritize the feminine over the masculine? Are women really thriving because they're outperforming men, or is it that the rules have changed for them? What's the truth?
The feminization of the world is speeding the collapse. They advocated for female empowerment without knowing exactly what that meant. And now, with millions of people losing their jobs, inflation, and antisocial society, many women want men to come and save them, but it's too little too late. What is up, guys? It's your boy Andy Matrix. I'm back with another video. I'm back on your guys' YouTube channel. If you haven't heard of me, make sure to follow me on Andy Matrix Gaming, where I talk about anime, manga, Japanese culture, video games, and other societal issues. Click the link in the description to go ahead and follow me and check out my YouTube channel. Also, make sure to check out Angry Guy on Rumble because YouTube has become the censor station. And Angry Guy's uploading new videos up over there on Rumble that he's not allowed to upload on YouTube because, well, so some spicy stuff. Some spicy stuff. Right? And guys, we have lost millions and millions of jobs. There are people that they have spent months, even a year, without finding another job. And we're being pushed into the brink of just basically, fending for ourselves. And, 9-to-5 jobs are pretty much on their way out. And when there's no jobs left, you're going to have to, be independent and start your own side hustle. Right? That's why Angry Guy created the Angry Content Creator Academy, where you learn how to basically build your own brand on the internet and, create a digital product, start earning income and begin your journey to be independent from a 9-to-5 job, guys. So click the link in the description, check out Angry Guy's Content Creator Academy, and you get a free guide once you sign up. So let's get on with the show. The masculine was created to protect. God created the masculine to lead and to protect. Without masculine leadership, the world is lost, my friends. Nowadays, many of these leftists will disagree with that because, being masculine is so poison, right? That is why when feminist organizations begin to feminize young men, many women lost the protection they actually needed. They lost that protection, right? They don't realize what they lost. They said they can be independent without a man and forget that society was built by men, and that is why they feel safe and independent. They said there is no such thing as gender roles, and now the women are alone. They cry themselves to sleep and cry on social media wondering why they are alone. So today we have Annie Shack covering this topic, so let's go ahead and get right into it.
Women are priceless. Truth matters more than comfort. What happens when masculine culture goes toxic or when masculine culture goes too far? What happens when feminine culture goes toxic? What happens when you prioritize the feminine over the masculine? Are women really thriving because they're outperforming men, or is it that the rules have changed for them? What's the truth? Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Ancient Intelligence. You've got your host, Anya Shack here. And today I want to get into a conversation about the great feminization of our culture and specifically our many major institutions, like in the external sphere of our lives, and why those things being feminized is not good for any of us. There was a really great article written by Helen Andrews published about a week ago in Compact Magazine called The Great Feminization. So I'm going to link it below, and I'm utilizing that article to do some reactions and spark some conversation and insights and observations. So excited to get into it. And I've also loved that the last couple of episodes I've focused on sex differences at work that feeds really nicely into this conversation about feminization and why it's not good for us. Helen Andrews' big thing and big aha is that, the most relevant differences are not actually about individuals, it's about groups. So the notion that When we reach a tipping point, to the point when any organization, institution, domain goes from majority male to majority female, then the behaviors and the interactions and the goals, the outcomes, what goes on in that institution changes. It becomes feminized. And that's the whole point. She's talking about how, individuals are unique. They're phenomenal female scientists, they're phenomenal female journalists, they're phenomenal individuals doing work and outliers across stereotypes. That's what she says here. Individuals are unique, and you come across outliers who defy stereotypes day in, day out. But groups of men and groups of women display consistent differences.
And this is what a lot of people don't want to admit, especially liberals in America, well, but really Western liberals, is that they think, right? They think that that men and women are the same. You go to college and that's what they teach you, that men and women are pretty much the same. That there's no difference besides our genitals. No, but there's a lot of differences. There's a lot of consistent differences within our biology. And yeah, sometimes you're gonna find that one female that just happens to have the genetic that gives her a lot of strength, and she can probably knock out a guy on in the boxing ring, or run faster than a man, right? Out of hundreds of thousands, out of a million, one female will be born that has that genetic strength, right? But for the most part, 99% of men are stronger than females. And I'm not saying this to be sound weird or anything, but that's just a fact. And we knew this as people, but now everybody just wants to deny the laws of nature. Deny the laws of nature. They want to talk about science, but they don't want to acknowledge that there's differences between men and women. Right? The hypocrisy is fucking tremendous.
And the big difference when you get a group of women that become the majority in any given institution is that truth seeking falls to the wayside and comfort seeking becomes most important. This feminine drive, feminine quality of comfort seeking takes precedence. She says, when you prioritize the feminine over the masculine, empathy goes over rationality, safety over risk, and cohesion over competition. So feelings start to matter more than the truth. And that might be okay in certain scenarios. For example, with children inside of the home in a caretaking role, sometimes, right? That might be good. But when it comes to some of these major institutions, the law, journalism, science, medicine, the notion that we've prioritized comfort over truth is the reality of what's gone on over these past decades and how it's really just messed with what we understand as truth, rationality, logic, and just to put a stake in the ground, the masculine way of doing things is better in those types of institutions because rationality matters more, truth seeking matters more. It just is. And so she was talking about this breaking point that happened in 2005 with former president of Harvard, Larry Summers. And she talked about how there was an off-the-record conversation that was held when someone had asked him why there aren't as many women in certain STEM fields. And I think he brought up greater male variability in that there were sex differences at play. And that was his response. And what ended up happening was a group of women had him canceled. He was pushed out of Harvard and he was canceled. But the point is that he was canceled in a very feminine way.
So if you guys wonder why in the old days, right, women were not allowed to take positions of power, is because of this, because men and women think differently. Like what she said, like Anya said, that the way that women would handle a problem or like sue somebody was in a very feminine way, right? It's done in a very feminine way. And certain things, especially if you're like the president or the CEO of a company, you cannot handle things in a feminine way. It requires, direct action. It requires actions and thinking of strategies that's going to get you results. Okay, the male brain is about results, unless of course he was raised by his his grandma and develop a female brain. You understand? And that's the problem. That's the problem is that many kids, many boys are being raised by single mothers, and they don't develop that that masculine thinking until later on in life. So yeah, man. But the liberals will have you think that, oh no, there's no difference between men and women. It's a lie. And in this economy, you are gonna need a lot of logical thinking, and a lot of discipline. Because we have lost millions of jobs. A lot of people cannot find another job, and many people can actually end up homeless. Right? When you can't find another job, you're gonna have to go back to live with mom and dad, and not everybody can go back and live with mom and dad. Right? A lot of people are being pushed into the brink, and a lot of people are being pushed to be independent of a 9 to 5. Right? And what better way to be independent from a 9 to 5 than to start an online business? Right? That's why Angry Guy created the Angry Content Creator Academy, where you could learn how to create content and build an audience online, and also create a digital product to start generating revenue, and start becoming independent of a job, because jobs are disappearing. And they're already talking. The elites are already talking about UBI, Universal Basic Income. So a lot of people are going to be living off of that. But you want to be one of the ones that's independent of these things. So click the link in the description. Check out the Content Creator Academy by Angry Guy. Click the link, check it out. If once you sign up, you get a free guide. And let's go on and continue with Anya.
He was canceled not because what he said was untrue. He was canceled because people didn't like how they felt about it. And therein lies the problem, right? Because the masculine perspective would be what Larry said. Is it true or is it not true? Let's go on a search. Let's be detectives. Let's figure that out. If what he said is true, that's it. Moving right along, right? Truth matters more than comfort. And so with that, you could imagine all kinds of that effectively made space for all kinds of manipulation. And so I think that let's take a step back here. So let's just think about some basic aspects of yin and yang, right? So yin as in the feminine, yang as in the masculine. So yin reflects the inner world, yang reflects the outer world. Yin is all focused on experience, and yang is focused on results, right? And I think that's just really, really important. And so there's been big conversations about what happens when masculine culture goes toxic or when masculine culture goes too far. And, people talk about like the frat boyification of the workplace. And I've experienced this in a big way. And what people don't talk about is what happens when feminine culture goes toxic, which has been happening for decades. People don't really want to talk about that. And the question here is, right, and this is back to that Thomas Sowell quote, like perfection doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Everything is about trade-offs. And I guess there's a question to ask, like, are toxic bits of masculine culture better than toxic bits of feminine culture? I argue in institutions where truth matters over comfort, probably. Maybe in institutions where comfort matters over truth.
And this is why you see a lot of cases of like, men getting in trouble because they were speaking a certain way, or they said it with a certain tone, or, and this is one of the reasons why a lot of these leftists, they start attacking somebody for the simple fact that they don't like how they were speaking. So let's say Andrew Tate, right? Andrew Tate is a very masculine dude. Now, he's obviously a freaking criminal. He's gotten into a lot of trouble, been arrested, done this and that. And even his business is criminal, like his cam girl business. It's a scam, right? So he's a criminal. But there's no denying that the guy, he's actually very masculine. Okay? He is. And the way that Andrew Tate talks is very direct, right? Very direct to the point, with some jokes in it. Very direct to the point. And he gets to it. He gets to it, and he talks with I guess kind of like I don't know how to explain it, but he speaks manly, deep voice, direct. And for the simple fact that some people do not like what he says, despite of everything that he says is true, because he's saying it like a man, they'll get him in trouble. They'll report him. They'll hit the report button. They'll get him in trouble. See, that's the problem. That is the problem. You know, is that just because you're saying it like a man can, they don't like you. That alone can get you in trouble or scare them away. That's the problem nowadays, man. And that's what we see a lot of women complaining about gaming, like the Call of Duty gaming lobbies. They say, "Oh, well, these guys they curse too much, right? There's too much cursing here. Oh, why they're insulting you? Oh, they like these guys, they insult you and they call you names, blah 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 blah. They can't handle it. They can't handle it, right? And comedians, right? Comedy almost died. Comedy almost died, because a lot of people they were getting all these comedians in trouble. They were canceling comedians like Louis C.K. and a couple of other comedians. But like, a comedian will say something about a transgender, and all of a sudden the entire internet will fall apart, will fall into tears because they don't like how he said it. Because it's a man telling the joke. They can't handle it. But anyways, let's go back to our girl.
Not, right? You need the more feminine culture. And it'd be a really great exercise to get a T-chart out and just figure out what those different things are, I think would be really important. So, there's that great line, in the absence of the feminine, the masculine can very quickly become tyrannical, right? The dark side of the masculine is tyranny. In the absence of masculinity, the feminine can very quickly become chaos. The dark side of the feminine is chaos. And wokeness is chaos. Wokeness can't exist without the feminization of our culture, because wokeness is effectively emotional manipulation that only thrives in chaos. Think about it. Everything that people have said, oh, I need to change my sex because I don't feel like I'm this, but now I want to be that. And now I need to go back here. And the president said this, and then we're going to go here. And it's all like, wait, what's the truth? Oh, but COVID was this, and now we're saying it's this. What's the truth? Nobody cares, because what's happened is we've created an environment of chaos. So you're just lost in the soup of it all, and people can't find their way out. And that's the whole point. That's how you emotionally manipulate. Now, toxic masculine culture exists too. And it's funny, I was listening to Louise Perry talk about this with Rob Henderson. They were talking about communism, right? Feminine communism is effectively wokeness, whereas masculine communism is gulags. And it's really interesting, right? Because you think about tyranny, and that's exactly what I think about. It's think about Stalin, and I think about gulags, and that's tyranny. That's when you don't have any feminine at all, and that doesn't work. And so what we're talking about now is 2025, the culture of the West. We don't have enough masculinity in the culture, and that's the point. The feminization of everything has made everything dark and chaotic and insane and crazy. It's one of these things that you can take the macro societal events going on and you can see them there, and you can also take the micro. And that's what I think I'm excited to do, because I listen to these sexual and political and social commentators, and then I'm also in the world of polarity and coaching and coaches, right? So it's like a men's coach or a women's coach will always say, like, 9 times out of 10 women don't want you to fix their problems, they just want you to listen to them, right? So it's this notion that women value experience over results. There are these very fundamental yin-yang principles that it's like you go back to basics and you remember all of that and you realize, oh, wow, that's why we have all of these problems in our society and in our culture, because we haven't thought about these things, or we haven't implemented them in our societies in big, meaningful ways.
This is an unpopular opinion, but I really do believe that we should start teaching the masculine and feminine in schools, right? In schools, or at least parents should teach these things to their children, right? Like before, like because a lot of these things were, people were taught at an early age, or people would just learn it because they were raised in a family where, like, the father was the head of the household and the mother took care of the family, so they naturally just kind of like learned it from their mother and father. and that was it, right? But now it has to be taught, and I mean, you have to sit the kids down, maybe give them a book, right? A good book would be well, the Bible's a good book about masculine and feminine, but another good book would be like David Data's The Way of the Superior Man. That will be a good book for the boys, right? The Way of the Superior Man by David Data. That is a really, really good book on the masculine and feminine. Really teaches boys how to, tap into their masculinity, right? Um, but if you say this, people think it's one of those things that they expect you to just know. Like, oh, when are you supposed to kiss a girl? Well, you're supposed to just figure that out, right? But in this case, the family has been so broken up in our society that we're gonna have to start teaching the kids because they're not being. A lot of them are not being raised with mommy and daddy. They're being raised in broken households. They're being raised in broken households. That's the truth. That's the truth. You know. Anyways, let's go back to our video.
And so thinking about outcomes and results and precision, the masculine is extremely focused on precision and the feminine is not. You ask a woman a question, she will jump right in with her in the moment feeling about the question. That's just reality. And that's who women are. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just let's just get objective about what the realities are about our respective sex differences. You ask a man a question, he will think about it. He will take more time. He will pause. He will try to get you the most precise answer to your question because he is focused on the results. He's not focused on the experience of that conversation. He's focused on the results of your question being answered appropriately and effectively. And this is why masculinity is amazing. Generally speaking, if we were going to just try to put a stake in the ground, 75% of our institutions should probably be masculine functioning, like masculine driven, right? And then going back to the original point, there are plenty of individual outliers, right? Plenty of individual outliers. If there's a woman that wants to, like, just her deep desire is to be like the biggest, baddest lawyer of her town, amazing. Go do that. Let's make space for her, but she's going to have to function in a masculine environment. And that's going to be really important. There's been a couple of suggestions, right? So Helen Andrews was just saying, like, hey, let's just take away affirmative action for women and let's just see where things fall. Let's just see if men kind of get the masculine back in these institutions. And then another woman was like, no, we need to actually try to find a way to remasculinify some of these institutions. And I think that's interesting as well. It's really complicated right now because of the skew, because of the majority female in those institutions. So we really, really need to figure out what to do. So let's just talk about the dark sides, I guess, of the masculine, the old way of the masculine work life experiences. And just one particular experience I can remember, because I've heard a lot of women talk about this, but I don't want to kind of share hearsay. I'm going to give you my personal experience with what people refer to as like the toxic bro culture. I remember being an intern at an ad agency in Los Angeles, and I remember this was a very bro environment and experience. It was like Mad Men, but with sneakers. The clients were a lot of sports clients. There were a lot of energy drink clients. It was just like video game clients. It was a very like sexy place to work if you were in that world. And so they threw a lot of parties. And I remember coming into work one morning after one of these big parties that they threw that I was not invited to. And I remember seeing like vomit in the corner. I remember seeing like beer cans everywhere. And I went up and I went into my desk and I sat down and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, what do I do about this? I don't know. It was just like, this wasn't even my party. And so I was just getting my stuff together and like sitting down before I tried to, I was going to kind of figure out what to do next. And then I heard two of the senior guys come up the stairs and they said something like, "Where's Anya? Where's Jennifer? They need to clean this stuff up. Like, where are they to clean all this stuff up? It's a mess in here," right? That came out of that man super subconsciously. Like, I don't think he consciously thought of it, but his programming and where he was at and what he was doing in his life had him say, "Oh, I'm going to call on the female interns." There were 3 male interns in that experience as well. "I'm going to call on the female interns because my subconscious programming says that they're the ones that need to clean this up. That's kind of what people are talking about when they're talking about the toxic bro culture. So now, if he said, hey, where are the interns? They need to clean this up. I'd have been fine with it, right? A little light hazing, lowest on the totem pole, fair enough, right? That's part of that like masculine culture that is fine.
I'll be honest. I don't think we're gonna go back to that. I don't think we're gonna go back to that because um, here's the thing about being a man. Um, when you're a man, you start out with nothing. You start out with fucking nothing. You have to build yourself up, right? You gotta. It's like, see, this is why boys love RPG. I fucking love RPG games. Okay, when you're a man, you have to level up. You gotta get experience. You gotta learn. You gotta go to school. You gotta learn how to master the world. You know, learn how to fix your own car. Learn how to do this. Learn how to do that. Learn how to fight. You gotta learn how to throw a punch, right? And you want to have sex. You gotta learn how to talk to girls. You're gonna have to learn how to like get into your emotions a little bit, tell some jokes, turn her on, blah blah, frickety blah, right? You gotta learn all these things. To me, being a man, you never stop freaking learning. When you're a man, you never stop learning. That's the way I see being a man. Never stop learning, right? And leveling up and making money. And even if the economy collapses, you got to find a way to survive. Like right now, man. You got to find a way to survive. However, when you are a female, what is a popular thing for girls to do, okay? You know, if you're really pretty, if you're like a hot chick, if you're like one of the, like for me, I love Asian girls. If you're one of these hot Asian girls with the small eyes, the shiny long hair, you know, nice and skinny, you know, you can get yourself, a millionaire, a guy that makes $1 million. Hey, not even a millionaire. You could get yourself a guy that makes 6-figure income. He'll take care of you. All you got to do is, blow him, fix him a sandwich. Don't talk so much, and that's it. Your life is set. Have some babies, take care of the kids. But a man's life is so much more complicated because we're constantly being challenged by the world. You know, you always have to prove yourself when you're a man. That's the problem. That's what people don't seem to understand. Okay? This is why men and women will never be the same. Don't listen to these stupid liberals. Right? And honestly, at this point, the family has been broken down so much that I don't think we're gonna go back to that place. And because now the new masculine is the oligarchs. The oligarchs, that's the new masculine, because a lot of women depend on the government, and the government is they're married to the government. You know, the government is the husband. Oh God Almighty. But hey, whatever your thoughts are, make sure to like this video, comment below, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for future notifications. Guys, it's your boy in the Matrix. Godspeed.